Hello everyone, my name is Larseth, and welcome to a short guide on force limits in Europa Universalis IV. So this guide will cover both on-land force limits and naval force limits. And typically I would pick a landlocked nation, but it doesn't really matter, because I picked Muscovy for a reason. So force limits, you can see in a numerous number of different screens, but this one's probably the easiest one to see. Where is it? There we go. Right, so force limits is basically how many troops or ships you can field. When you get up to your force limit, so for us, our force limit is 26 for our army and 12 for our navy. Once you get up to your force limit, anything above that, the maintenance cost of the troops above that will increase quite considerably. It differs depending on what unit that is. So a good example is for naval ships. For ships, like galleys are very cheap. If you go over force limit, it won't cost you too much extra maintenance. I believe for like heavy ships, for example, it would probably go up a lot. The same is probably true when comparing cannons and troops on a land army. So how is force limit decided? So you'll see here that you get a base amount of force limit if you're an independent nation or not. Now, I'm not going to sort of go into the base aspect of manpower. I'm going to go into more how you increase manpower. So the reason I chose Muscovy is to demonstrate this is one of the reasons you can get more manpower. Not more manpower. What am I about? Force limit. More force limit. Is by doing ideas. So national ideas, so Muscovy's second national idea gives 50% force limit, land force limit modifier. Also, in the idea groups, if you go to, where is it? Quantity. It is, I believe, one of these. Yeah, there it is. It's the final. When fully unlocked, quantity ideas give plus 50% land force limit modifier. So that's two ways of just increasing your force limit. That, of course, takes a while. And it should bear in mind the same applies for Navy. There are ideas that do the same. So maritime gives that. I don't think that naval ideas do. No, it doesn't. So that's one way of increasing it. Obviously, that takes a while because you actually have to, do those ideas. So the best way generally of increasing your force limit is by conquering, because you get a base amount. You get, wow, I can tell you how much it is. It's 0.1 of a force limit for every point of development you have, and that's for both land and naval. So if you conquer more provinces, that's obviously more development, which means more manpower, more force limit, sorry. Equally, if you develop provinces, it doesn't matter which sort of section you put the development into, each point of development will increase your force limit by 0.1. You can also use buildings. Let's go into the building view here. Obviously, I haven't unlocked any of these yet because I've just started this game, but for navies, you can increase your force limit by building shipyards, which gives +2. Grand shipyards, which gives +4. And then the same is for armies, is essentially it's half, I think. Yeah, so regiment camp and conscription center gives 1 and 2 force limits respectively. Navies, you can also get quite a substantial amount, given that it's free, from, where is it? We're looking for a center of trade. So being a center of trade, you'll see coastal center of trade gives +2 naval force limit. So that's a way of increasing that. Also, if you are a member of a trade company, you gain 0.5 of a naval force limit. So it's much easier to gain sort of naval force limit than it is land force limit. But if you think about it, navies are a lot cheaper to keep than land forces, so it sort of makes sense. Other ways of increasing your land force limits, if you're particularly playing as Castile or Portugal, colonial nations. For every single colonial nation that has over 10 provinces, you will gain 5 land force limit and 10 naval force limit, which, you know, if you don't already know, explains why Castile and Portugal and any other colonial nations tend to have pretty large navies and quite large armies. Because if you're having like 5 or 6 colonial nations each, say 5, then that's instantly 50 land naval force limit. So it's like easy to get a massive navy. However, there's also a benefit if you are just keeping vassals rather than colonial nations. So if you have, who's good at example? I'm not sure who starts off with a march. Oh no, it is Poland starts off with a march. Poland has Moldavia as a march. Moldavia being a march, I wonder if it says. Yeah, it does say here. Land force limit modifier. Oh no, sorry. So Moldavia will get a force limit modifier, but by being a march, that gives Poland +2 land force limit. A normal vassal would only give +1. So that's one of the added benefits of, you know, it's an extra force limit, essentially, you gain from turning a vassal into a march. Of course, those are basically all the ways that you can actually gain force limit. However, there is also one way you can lose force limit, and that's probably not all that surprising, and it's to do with autonomy. I think, there we go, we'll see here. It says here, yeah, so for every percentage point of autonomy, you gain -1% force limit modifier, as is quite obvious from this graph. So we're at 25% autonomy in this province, and we get -25% to both land and naval force limit modifiers. So getting your autonomy as low as possible is good for pretty much, you know, it's brilliant. So it gives you more money, it gives you more everything. So the lower autonomy you can get, the better. It's pointless conquering a load of land and having really high developed provinces if they are stuck at really high autonomy, because they're really basically useless to you in many respects. But the only upside is they won't rebel. But I hope this guide has been helpful. That's pretty much all I can think of with regard to how force limits work. But if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will speak to you in the next guide. Take care.